months ago when you're trying to figure out what to do with your classes.
Okay.
Tell us what you're looking at.
Okay, so the way I would begin my week off is I would use the progress report, and what it does is just gives me a quick snapshot. Oh, I'm sorry, I'm looking at everything but what I'm supposed to.
Instead of saying what you would do, just say
What I'm doing, as if I'm doing it now? Okay. Okay, so it's Monday, it's Monday morning, and I spent a little time last night, Sunday night, looking at my progress report, so I can get a pretty quick snapshot of where the kids are, what modules they're working on, what they're proficient at, what they are struggling with, or what they're still working on. So that basically gives me that snapshot that I need. And then Monday morning is here, and I say to the kids, okay, now it's time to set your goals for the week. And I then tell them that they need to use their own progress report to kind of take a look at that map and say, okay, what, based on that data, do I need to do for this week?
And when you're looking at the progress report, what is it called?
It's called the progress report. That's actually what it's called.
Okay. What do you see there?
It is basically, it's a graph, and it basically has the name of the modules across the top. It has the children down the left. And within that actually is the actual grid, right? So it's either a green bar, which says they're proficient in a module, if it's green. If it's a blue bar, that means they're still working on that particular module. And if it's a red bar, it's a sign that they're struggling with that. So I taught them how to read that data and with that set their goals for the week.
So then how do you open up class? How do you run goal setting on that Monday?
So I'll basically say to them, it's take out your computers, it's time for goal setting. Look at your progress report, take out your index card, which is where we write our goals down, and come up with 2 or 3 goals that you like to work on for the week. Not something that you can accomplish just today and be done with your goals for the week, but I want something that, long term, meaning 4 or 5 days, which was very difficult at first because it's hard for 10-year-olds to even understand the whole idea of goal setting. But tough at first, but as we got into it, they became very good at it. So they look at that progress report and they decide exactly what their goals should be. And then they meet with me and I compare what they had to their progress report. And if it works, then I sign off on it. And if it doesn't, then together we decide what would be a better goal for the week. And that index card then, after it's approved by me, goes home to mom and dad. And mom and dad have to look at it with their child and sign off on it. So everybody knows, including parents, what those kids should be working on for the week.
Can you walk us through one student?
Sure. So let's take Katie, for instance. So I would basically just click on Katie, and I have her progress report in front of me, and I can basically see right away that she's got no red, which of course makes me happy. But I do see a lot of blues, which makes me think, or actually allows me to realize that she's all over the place, and I need to get her focused, and she needs to get herself focused. So I would, I'd call her up, and we'd look at her goals card, and I'd see where she was, and my hope for her would be that she selected maybe 2 or 3 of those modules that she actually wants to work on for the week. We talk about that. And then I said I'd sign off on it, and we kind of go from there. And then as the week goes, I'm actually, when I'm seeing them one-on-one, and I try to get to all of them at least once a day, I'm checking in to make sure that Katie is working on those specific goals that her and I agreed upon. And usually I'm using an iPad, so it allows me to get up and move around the classroom, and I'm mobile rather than me going back to my desktop, taking a look, or calling the student up, or Katie in this case. I'd be at Katie's desk with my iPad, just checking on to make sure exactly where she is and where I want her to be.
How else do you use your data?
The data when on my iPad, or a different piece of data actually.
The data that Con provides you.
Yeah. So okay. So that's just the one piece, right? And then what I'm doing is I'm using the focus chart, which is something that we asked Khan Academy for, and they developed for us, because we really didn't have a quick snapshot as to what the kids were actually working on in any given day or week. I mean, a real quick snapshot, right? So this focus chart, which is like a pie graph, lets me know right away if they're working on their goals or not. So if I look at the focus chart and I see that one of Katie's goals was working in the units module and she wants to become proficient, and I look at the pie graph or the focus chart, I can see that the huge chunk of her week so far has been in units. So as her teacher, I'm glad about that, right? But if I look and see that most of her chart is on dividing fractions and that's not one of her goals, then that's a problem. So that actually allows me to intervene immediately and say, Katie, we're a little off task. You're not working on your goals. Why? What's going on? Let's get you back to where you are. And I can find out a lot about Katie in just a couple of minutes just by looking at that chart. So the other piece of data that I use actually in the evenings is the daily activity report, which lets me know what they worked on every single day. I know what they're working on during the day because I'm here, but if I don't get to see a child, I can go home and say, okay, so he or she worked on, or Katie, let's say, worked on all of this. The piece about that I like is one thing we had asked Khan Academy to do for us is differentiate between school time and non-school time. So when I'm assigning homework to them, which I do, they get 60 minutes of homework a week of Khan Academy. I know exactly what they worked on, and I know how long they worked on, and again, I can match up with their goals. So if their goals are A, B, C, but they worked on D, E, F that night, I'll corral them back in the morning and say, it's not what you're supposed to be doing. Let's get you back on task. So that's I think I probably use that piece the most, actually, out of all of them. The other piece that I use is the not exercise progress, is, give me a second. Sorry. Actually, it says, I called it something different. It's actually the same thing. It's the exercise progress over time or daily activity report. It's the same type of information. Just let me make sure of that, though, okay? Yeah, it's pretty much. So getting back to that progress report, by the way, how I use that too is when I flexibly group kids. So during the week, if I see that 4 kids are in the red, struggling, and let's say dividing fractions, that'll be a focus for me for one of the days that week to pull those 4 kids over to the table and actually sit and work with them on that particular module. So they've worked, something's still wrong, they can't quite get it, but now I can actually intervene, and that's where I step in and I teach a mini lesson. And hopefully they leave me with the understanding to go back and continue to work on that module and become proficient in it. So,
how do they like your teaching compared to Mr. Khan?
I think, that's a good question. Since I guess the fact that they're used to my voice, right, and they're used to me, I think that they're more comfortable in that regard. But I think it's a great balance between the two of us, right? So they use Mr. Khan in his videos when necessary, but when they get to a point where they don't quite get it and they can't get it within his language, they'll come to me and they'll ask me. So they actually use both of us, which is really kind of cool. Yeah. And I think that's probably it on the data pieces. I think I pretty much covered how I would use it. Oh, let me get back. Friday. So Friday's come and it's the end of the week, and I want the kids to actually now reflect. So they go into their focus chart or that pie graph that I talked about, and they actually take a look at their goals and they take a look at their focus chart and they say, okay, my focus chart shows that I was focused on my goals for the week, or I didn't quite work on the goals that I should have been working on, and I need to get back to that. As a matter of fact, what I'll do, what I did at the beginning of us using the focus chart was I would project somebody's focus chart up on the screen behind me, and I would say, okay, can somebody tell me what Jeremy's goals were for the week by looking at the chart? And they'd be able to say, okay, his goals were multiplying decimals. And then I'd call Jeremy up and I'd look at his card and say, that's right, one of his goals was multiplying decimals, which is a great modeling tool because they really need to know how to do it, right? And it also kind of keeps them honest. When it gets to that Friday, they all know that they really need to work on their goals, or it might be a case where their peers realize that, and their teacher that they didn't. So I use it for that too. And parents had actually asked me, could you print that focus chart out so we at home can make sure that they worked on their goals all week? And I said, what a great idea. And of course I suggested no need to print it. You can just be a coach and you can go in and look at it. So, and that became a pretty popular thing with some of my parents, so they could actually be involved on Fridays as well.
So your parents are coaches of the students?
Yeah, yeah. I would say that every child has at least one parent as their coach. Yeah, yeah.
Not on the data, I don't know if you want to get on film what he was talking about the gender differences.
Yeah.
So we talked earlier about, your kids being at the age where girls will start to hide their math ability. So you haven't noticed that with your students, and actually sort of the opposite. So I was wondering if you could explain that bit.
Yeah, the girls in my class have slowly become peer tutors. Boys being a little bit more dominant, or maybe aggressive is a better word, they were up and out of their seats becoming peer tutors, probably very naturally. But as time went on, the girls saw, and I'm thinking of 3 or 4 or 5 of them, saw what an opportunity for them, and then they actually began to get out of their seats and peer tutor. So that was a great thing. As a matter of fact, they kind of just empowered the rest of the girls, I think, in my class, so now I have a great balance between boys and girls as peer tutors. It's not just all boys, it's not just all girls. It's probably a core group of about 8 kids, probably 4 and 4, that basically walk around and do that peer tutoring. So the girls have become a lot more, I guess, vocal.
Do the kids in your class all like math?
The kids in my class all like math very much. Even those who actually struggle now can still struggle, but they can struggle behind their computer screen, and nobody has to know that they're struggling except for their coaches, which would be me and, of course, their parents. And they actually, that's really good for them. So they don't have to be the one who I call on who just doesn't have enough to be able to answer that question, and then everybody knows it. So they all love it. As a matter of fact, we've been doing some reflecting. It's at the end of the school year, and I've been asking them, what are some of the highlights of 5th grade? What did you like? What did you not like? And as they write and they take notes and they brainstorm about the things they like, every single child actually has written down how much they enjoyed Khan Academy. That says a lot, actually. 5th graders are generally very honest. If they don't like something, they'll tell you that they don't like it. So, yeah, it's been good.
Do you feel like the 60 minutes of homework that you assign per week is something that your students initially struggled with and now don't anymore? Or do you still have to kind of enforce that, or do a lot of the kids just want to do that anyway?
The majority of them just want to do it anyway. I mean, if I assign 60 minutes, which I break down, of course, is 15 minutes a night, which it really isn't much at all. I would say that if I averaged out, kids are probably working 30 to 45 minutes a night, each night. So I've got some kids who are working 2 to 3 hours at night, and it's not nobody's forcing them. They're doing it. So the engagement is there and the excitement is there. Even to this day, as school comes closer to an end, I'm not assigning it at this point with all the other things going on. They're still doing it. So it's a good sign for me and for Khan Academy. Yeah.
All right, we want to let you go and have your lunch.
Okay.
Oh, yes, right. Can you walk us through the
Yeah.
screens that you're looking
Yeah,
at?
sure.
And then you can have your lunch.
I can have my lunchtime? Okay, thank you. I wish I could have got one of the kids, but this is just lunch for them, and then they go off into their fine arts block, and then I never see them until they leave.
You have a traditional elementary school schedule, right? You're the primary teacher for the subjects.
Yeah. Thursday afternoons, they actually, I let them go, and they have what we call a fine arts block. So they have a 3-period schedule where they rotate between PE, music, fine arts, computer animation, it's just a whole bunch of different things that they do. Yeah, they each get one of those. By the time the year's over,